job, and how do you work about quality with your organization? And maybe after Mar, you can also tell us, as your perspective on an umbrella organization, how do you work on quality?
Thank you. So yes, I think that first of all, as it has been said, quality needs to be linked to the purpose. What is the goal you want to achieve with your organization? At Duo for a Job, we had three main goals. The first one was to make sure that young people with a migration background could actually access to the labor market, that 50-plussers would be valued in their experience, but also that mentors and mentees would experience intercultural and intergenerational relation that would be positive and can link to maybe the construction of prejudice on both sides. And so the question about quality was, what should we put in place for it to actually, to make sure that it happens? I think that at the first time the question was raised was at the moment of creation of Duo for a Job. And so the two funders, before create the program, like they made a one-year tour to meet all the organization doing mentoring and working in this field, to make sure that they would actually create a program taking into account the learning, the mistakes of the others, and to exchange good and bad practices. And so I think that that has been very important, because actually a lot of tools, a lot of people with experience exist, a lot of standards are designed, as I was saying, Peter, and so I think that that's already a good base to start. And so we framed a program with a very strong methodology, the life cycle tool, and to make sure that Duo can receive proper support. So that was the first step. Then I think that the second step was to make sure that we would monitor this quality throughout time. And so I think that it has been discussed yesterday, but first of all, it would we tried to make sure that we would define a space where we can have the feedback of the mentors and the mentees, but the real feedback. And we put that in place through intervision between mentors, where there is always somebody from the organization who can collect the feedback of the mentors, the difficulties of the mentors and the mentees, through the relationship with the coordinator, but it means that the real coordinators need to be there throughout the relation, and also to oral evaluation, not only formulaire that people are taking at the end of the relation, but also to have a space to really discuss the relation. And based on that, we also try to make sure that there was space for new ideas from the people working there. And I think that's where you get team members on board regarding quality. So in your practice as a coordinator, you realize, and with the feedback and the mentors, that this is not working. What do you propose? Do you have space to create answers and to propose new projects to improve the quality and to answer the difficulties of the mentors and the mentees to get the purpose done? A third point would be the internal monitoring through evaluation. But when we speak about evaluation, there is also we realized that we had to make sure that there was time and responsibility to analyze those evaluations, to draw conclusion, and then to take action, not only doing evaluation for doing evaluation. And then a third point would be the external evaluation, because internal evaluation is nice, but nos engañamos, como decía Mar. We lie ourselves about what we're doing, yeah. But we wanted to make it work, so we lie ourselves. And so I think that partnership with researchers has been very useful for Duo for a Job. We are doing partnership with Peter, but also with other researchers, to make sure that we can have an external eye on what we do. We also develop impact evaluation with public services, and I think the data from the public service is very interesting too, and impact evaluation is interesting. And the last point is definitely all what is external assessment linked to label, and I think that Mar is going to talk about it a little bit further. And the last point is that for all that, and you stress that, but it requires time, people, and money. And so you can't expect a quality program for 300 euros a duo. So if we want quality, we need to invest in mentoring program. That's all.
Perfect. Maybe Mar, you can relay on to what she said as an umbrella organization.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Julie. As an umbrella organization, we identified in the sector the need to have a reference framework to define, evaluate, and promote the methodological quality, a framework adapted to a Spanish context, based on evidence and in a consolidated practice. We know that impact assessment is inaccessible for many organizations. We don't have resource enough to make a good evaluation impact, and sometimes the knowledge we generate has a limit useful application to these organizations. Then for us, we thought that quality evaluation can help us. Methodological quality do not guarantee the quality of relationships or the results, but they allowed us to increase them and to protect us from negative effects. And in a context of a mentoring boom, such the one we are living in Spain, it was necessary to generate this frame and the tools for the organizations to can think, to learn, to commit his organizations with the improvement of quality. At the Coordinadora, we developed the MC Seal to accompany the organizations in this process. The MC Seal is a system to evaluate all type of social mentoring programs. It's based on two international experience, on elements of effective practice and the approved provider standards. Our matrix established 10 requirements for validate the methodological quality in each phase of the program, from the recruitment and selection of participants, the training, monitoring, matching, monitoring from to the closure. And for each one, a set of process standards are required. There are two levels of accreditation to try to promote a progressive and sustainable process for the organizations. And the process starts with an online self-assessment that at a first improvement plan. After that, we start an auditing process that can lead a new improvement plan. But for us, it's really important to say that in this process, reflection, contextualization, priorization about the possibilities, improvement actions are of a great importance. For us, the auditing process is more a way to nurture the quality mentoring that rather than just validate the compliance of validance. It's the excuse to start the journey. And just say that for our humble experience, we can say that the MC Seal has been useful to reinforce the quality in Spain social mentoring programs. The Seal has moved the growing interest in social mentoring towards quality methodology and allowed us to avoid bad practice, and this is so important. And that's why we are committed to develop an European reference framework to better channel political interest and the added value of mentoring in the construction of a more inclusive and cohesive society. For us, the development of mentoring, it must be done at European level, and we therefore believe that common frame reference will help us to make this deployment reality.
Thank you, Mar. Thank you. And also it's very interesting to see how you mentioned the process of the quality seal and how this process, it's the perfect space also to give space to our teams to grow, to learn, right? And to understand how do we move forward better understanding of our goals and the quality we want and we expect. Yeah. So Ute, you are from 11, an organization that funds mentoring programs. So we thought that it was very interesting to ask you, how should we organize quality, in your opinion, to foster quality culture within the mentoring organizations? Because what do you see from a mentoring program that says, oh, this is quality, I wanna invest on that, I wanna improve this, I wanna support?
Well, thank you. We have a very comfortable situation because we can only expect quality and that's it. We just ask for it. We're done. Now, in fact, with 11, we fund mentoring organizations who are quite successful already. So we look for impact. We look for evidence on the effects of the mentoring of this program. And that brings with it that they come with standards already, in a way. You know, they're big programs, nationwide, widely established in Germany, and they have standards that they stick to, that they have experience, that they, of course, develop on and on. We expect that of them, and we also, as funders, ask them, what do you need to grow, you know, along the way, and to grow with your standards? But we expect them to have them and use them. Of course, it's not possible for all the organizations. And of course, there are many, many in Germany, I don't know, hundreds of small mentoring programs. And what's the reality for them? I think that the goal must be that there are some big organizations who share what they learned, who share their experience, who share them actively so that they can be found, they can be, you know, talked about it. And then there are some networks in Germany, some regional networks that do an amazing job on talking about quality criteria and using what they see in small mentoring programs. One umbrella organization is Mentoring Hamburg, which is excellent in using, like taking up what they hear from the different member organizations. And they have recently just published a quality guideline, which is only in German, unfortunately, but maybe we can work on that. And it's actually, you know, it's putting together the possibility to evaluate as a small program to see where we are, you know, what are our processes, what the structures of the organization, and how is the mentoring process itself. And then also to improve, you know, and go along and learn and see what's working for others. And of course, we also, you know, Hamburg and all our programs and we ourselves stick to the common standards that you just mentioned and the way of going about that you just explained. So I think we're very close with each other. And I'm actually convinced that we should stick together and just work on this European quality standard thing that you talked about. Let's go. That's for now, maybe.
Maybe I can add something. Yeah. I'm sitting here, so. Peter and the girl. Yeah. So I think, yeah, indeed, that this European level is important, because if there is a rise in especially social mentoring programs, and I think at a certain point the European Commission will say, well, we will fund if you follow our quality criteria. So we have to be before that, you know, and as a sector, as mentoring organizations, propose something to the European Commission, something that grows bottom up. I think otherwise they will just push it into or onto mentoring organizations. So I think this initiative to start thinking on a European level about quality is really important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's extremely important what four of you said, but how can we ensure quality when it's an emerging mentoring program, and how a program that has been running for years and years ensures also quality within their organizations? And because we know mentoring programs are alive, they adapt, they change, and how can we have to be super agile to change with it, and we have to have criteria that helps us through the journey, right? So maybe a closing question that you can, an opening question also, because we don't have all the answers. To the four of you, how do we go from here? What can we as a mentoring community, but also as organizations, can do to work towards quality? How?
Well, in small, I would say the advice would be, or the further steps would be, work together, learn from others, and share what you learned, and keep on moving and growing. And in reaction to the European idea, I would just say, let's have a meeting and talk about it.
Yeah, maybe just a small thing, but you're never too small to start working on quality. And I think we're talking a bit label, and it can be a bit frightening for a small organization saying, yeah, we're not gonna go for this label. But I mean, it's a path, I think. And when you start the journey, since the beginning of the program, yeah, you can. It's a progress, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but just start it.
I think it's. I don't know. You have something. The money again. We need money. Good one.
It's actually, I can say that because we are a funder. We need money for mentoring programs. And, you know, there are German programs who pay 200 euros per tandem, per duo. There's a program in Belgium paying 300 euros. It's not enough. For professional quality mentoring, it's not enough. It should be, what, 1,000, 1,500, 1,800 per tandem, and or even more. I don't know what your scales are, but that's the numbers that we work with in Germany. And yeah, we have to work on that. And yes. And quality standards and quality discussion can be the argument for that. Yeah.
You want to join us? Come here. Join the club of quality.
Jet lagged. So, one thought that I have, I think funding is really important. I liked what Fiona said is we all want mentoring programs, but I think the reality is we don't just want mentoring programs, we want quality mentoring programs that keep kids safe and do something good for them. And just the price per tandem was interesting. So we actually, Mike Geringer, Mentor National in the States, Heather McDaniel, who's a researcher at the University of Virginia, and myself did a national study of programs in the United States and looked at price per match and cost per mentor and things like that. I don't remember the exact number. I think it was something in the ballpark of $1,300 US dollars per match, and that was the average. But the interesting thing is that was nearly identical to what it was 20 years prior. So if you account for inflation, the price per match has really not changed in the U.S. But what we found is that programs that are serving youth with complex needs, that price per match goes up by default because it costs more to supervise and train and support these things. So I think one of the questions that I often have that I think about is when we're thinking about mentoring programs, we have to think about the population that we're interacting with, that we're serving. And I think the first question within the constraints that we have for funding is, should we be doing this? Right, with the needs that we have, the training expectations, supervision, safety protocols, all this is this something that we have? Because I remind our mentors this is fundamentally, especially in youth mentoring, where the consent is less with the child and more with the parent or the caregiver that you're doing this with. You're interfering with the child's life. And the question to me is, should we be doing this? Do we have enough checking procedures and safety protocols to make sure that that's happening? And I think the key to that, though, is my question, and this is a selfish answer, is I think we need more strategic and intentional investment in mentoring specific research. So a lot of times, I'm not sure how it is in Europe, but in the States, mentoring researchers, compete with other health researchers and educational researchers for these fundings, but I think that there needs to actually be investments in testing these checking procedures and safety protocols for mentoring organizations. So.
So we hear you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Just, isn't it dangerous, actually, the driving force is funding, although funding is very important, but I don't know if really it adds to the quality, especially when we connect per tandem the financing. And in what, you know what I mean? So the driving force will be as many matches as possible so that we get as many funding as possible. So I think the relation is wrong. So I just wanted to, yeah, thank you.
So more money doesn't mean more quality.
It's, of course, a danger sometimes, I think, for funders who don't really think about things. It can be a danger, but for us, I can say that we very strictly look for the combination of growing more tandems and more impact. So it's always connected, and if they don't manage, then we don't fund them. So, yeah.
I think funding is important to have a minimum quality. Like I talked to organizations who said like it's not about having more matches, it's about to have qualitative matches. And I talked to organizations who said we don't follow up, and I said, what? You don't speak to them after they are matched? That's not okay. So I mean, you need funding to do follow up. You need people to do this. So that's the funding is for. And when I hear the discussion, I also have the idea like mentoring organizations have to learn to say no. No to funders. If they say like you get 300 euros, no. We can't do qualitative mentoring for 300 euros. And I think this initiative about bringing quality to a European level and saying this is a minimum and gaining attention for that can help funders to think about it. If they only have 300 euro, well, maybe there can be negative effects. And people can be harmed by this kind of mentoring. So I think it's important to unite as a mentoring field, thinking about quality and also saying no when you're not properly funded.
Thank you, Peter. It will be the ending words, but we will keep continuing the conversation because you have a workshop on quality and you also have a workshop with the Quality Seal with the French team. So yes, please join the workshops. Yes? You had a question? We are closing the questions because we're running out of time, but you can then go and look for them at the open space. Thank you very much. Thank you, the 5 of you.